silent neighbor. Imagine, your neighbor smiles at you every morning. He's quiet, polite, always pays his rent on time. But behind that door, he keeps disturbing secrets in his refrigerator and in his closet, photographs of unspeakable horrors. July 1991, a man runs down the street, handcuffed, screaming that someone is trying to harm him. Police follow him to this apartment. What they would find inside would make all of Milwaukee and the entire world discover that the most terrifying predator didn't live in a forest, nor lurk in the night. He lived at the end of the hallway, and his name was Jeffrey Dahmer. What you're about to learn, you won't be able to forget Jeffrey Dahmer, the silent neighbor. It was a sweltering day in July 1991 in Milwaukee. Police receive a distress call. A man running through the streets, screaming, handcuffed, begging for help. Officers find him, and he leads them to an apartment that, in a matter of minutes, would become one of the most chilling locations in American criminal history. Inside was Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, a quiet, polite man, and the most silent neighbor in the building. Childhood and first shadow. Jeffrey was born on May 21st, 1960, in West Allis, Wisconsin. He was a shy, quiet child who seemed invisible to most. But, from a very young age, something dark began to grow within him. His parents remember that he spent hours collecting deceased animals from the roadside. He didn't do it out of compassion. He did it out of curiosity. He wanted to know what they looked like inside. At age 10, Jeffrey began keeping animal bones in jars. He said he liked the sound they made. It was the beginning of a fascination that would never leave him. An invisible teenager at school. Dahmer was a ghost. He had no close friends, didn't participate in activities. But he did have one: refuge, alcohol. He drank from early on, even in class. It was his way of silencing something, and something he couldn't tell anyone. With adolescence came the fantasies. They weren't normal fantasies. They were about controlling, dominating, completely possessing another person. And not just that, about what happened when that person stopped breathing. The first victim in June 1978, Dahmer was 18 years old. His parents had separated, and he was left alone at home. One afternoon, driving down the highway, he saw a young man hitchhiking, Stephen Hicks, 19 years old. He invited him to his house for some beers. They laughed, talked, but when Stephen wanted to leave, something in Jeffrey broke. He struck him with a dumbbell and then strangled him. It was the first time he felt that absolute power. Afterward, he dismembered the body. He kept some parts, scattered others, and so his life changed forever. Years in the shadows after the first incident, Dahmer tried to live normally. He joined the army, but was discharged due to alcohol problems. He returned home, had brief jobs, and always ended up alone. Inside, the compulsion grew. The fantasies returned, more intense. He wanted someone who could never leave him. The return to the impulse in 1987. Dahmer was living in a cheap hotel. One night he met Stephen Tuomi at a bar. They drank, went to the room. The next morning, Stephen was deceased. Dahmer claimed not to remember how he ended his life, but he did remember what he did afterward. He placed the body in a suitcase and took it to his grandmother's apartment. There, he dismembered it in the basement. That basement would become a laboratory of death. Grandmother's house. His grandmother loved him. She thought her grandson was shy, but good. She never imagined that while she slept. He worked on lifeless bodies. Dahmer took advantage of the privacy to experiment. He photographed his victims in different poses. He kept cleaned skulls as trophies. And he began to feel that this way he controlled death. Total control. Dahmer didn't just want to take lives. He wanted to create eternal companionship. He attempted to drill holes in some victims' skulls and inject acid. His goal, to keep them alive, but without will, perfect servants forever. None survived, but Dahmer was increasingly obsessed. Apartment 213. In 1990, Dahmer moved alone to apartment 213. To his neighbors, he was quiet, reserved, polite. Sometimes they complained about the smell coming from his door. He said it was spoiled meat or dead fish in the refrigerator. No one suspected that inside. There were barrels with acid, bones in drawers, skulls in the fridge, and photographs that police would one day call the most disturbing ever seen. Deceiving the law, there were moments when Dahmer was seconds away from being discovered. Once, a victim escaped, unclothed and drugged, into the street. Police intercepted him. Dahmer came out, explained that it was his partner, that they had an argument. The officers believed him. They returned the victim to the apartment. That victim would be found deceased hours later. The point of no return. Between 1978 and 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer took the lives of 17 men and young people. Each crime was more brutal, more calculated. He moved in silence, hid in plain sight. His world was a macabre theater, and he was the director. But every empire of terror has an end, and Dahmer's was near. What no one knew was that an unexpected turn was about to expose the horror of apartment 213. The apartment of horror, the night that changed everything, July 27, 1991. The heat in Milwaukee was suffocating. In apartment 213, Jeffrey Dahmer had just lured another young man to his lair, Tracy Edwards, 32 years old. Dahmer offered him beer and something more. Tracy noticed the strange smell, the fixed stare, the locks on the door. Then he saw the knife. Dahmer told him he was going to take some photos, but in his eyes, Tracy read something else. In a moment of distraction, Tracy struck Dahmer and fled, running through the streets, handcuffed, screaming for help. The first step to truth. 2 officers intercepted him. Tracy told them that a man in his apartment tried to harm him, that there were knives, that there were photos, and that there was a smell he couldn't describe. The police listened to him, and for the first time, they decided to investigate. Door 213. They arrived at the Oxford Apartments building. Dahmer opened the door. His voice was calm, his movements measured. He told them it was all a misunderstanding, that he was playing with Tracy. One of the officers saw the table, and on it, a pile of Polaroid photographs. The images showed lifeless bodies, human parts, arranged as if they were sculptures. The policeman looked at Dahmer and said, "These are real." In that moment, Jeffrey Dahmer tried to resist, but they handcuffed him. The hunt was over. The search, what they found inside. No one would ever forget. A refrigerator with a perfectly preserved human head. 3 painted skulls. 2 blue barrels full of acid and human torsos. A freezer with bags containing human remains. Dozens of Polaroid photographs, documenting each stage of his crimes. The smell was unbearable. Officers said it permeated their clothes, and they never managed to completely remove it. The secret of the barrels were his laboratory. There he dissolved bodies in acid to erase evidence, but sometimes he kept parts as trophies. He wasn't just a predator. He was a collector of death. The profile of the monster Jeffrey Dahmer confessed everything. He recounted that he had taken the lives of 17 men and adolescents, that he chose them for attraction, but above all, for the idea that they could belong to him forever. He spoke without remorse. His voice was cold, calculating, as if describing a recipe. The story that could have changed earlier. The capture revealed something terrifying. Dahmer could have been stopped years earlier, but he wasn't. In 1991, a 14-year-old Conorak synthesomphone escaped from his apartment drugged and unclothed. Police found him, but Dahmer came out, said it was his partner, that he was drunk. The agents believed him. They returned him. Hours later, Conorak was deceased. That error cost more victims their lives. The trial began in January 1992. The courtroom was filled with journalists, victims' families, and onlookers. The charges, 15 counts of ending lives. Dahmer pleaded guilty, but legally sane. His lawyer tried to argue insanity, but the jury decided he understood perfectly what he was doing. The sentence: Jeffrey Dahmer was sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences, 957 years in prison. Justice had spoken. But for the families, there was no relief. Mothers cried, brothers shouted insults. It was judicial closure, but not emotional. Life in prison, in jail. Dahmer became a strange figure. Some inmates avoided him, others wanted to harm him. He mocked his own past, made macabre jokes in the cafeteria. He played with the idea of being the monster everyone feared. The end November 28th, 1994. Dahmer was cleaning a common area of the prison alongside 2 other inmates. One of them, Christopher Scarver, attacked him brutally with a metal bar. Jeffrey Dahmer passed away within minutes. His death brought no peace. It only closed a chapter, too dark to forget. The legacy of horror, the Dahmer case, left deep scars. It exposed police failures that cost lives. It showed the human capacity for manipulation and deception. And it left an unanswered question. How can a friendly neighbor hide hell behind his door?